Hey guys, it's Miss Catapult. I'm sorry if there's some noise in the background today. Um, my landlord is mowing the lawn, and I need to do this right now. So, no choice. We're gonna listen to the whirring of a lawnmower along with my voice. So, yes, you read this title screen right. You are gonna write me an essay. It's not gonna be long. It's one page. So don't freak out. It's all gonna be fine. I promise. I wrote it myself last night in probably like 30 minutes. So it's not going to take you that much time, I don't think. Um, this is your only assignment this week. And then after this, we're pretty much done, which I'll go over in a second. So, um, just some general announcements. The last day that you can turn in work for this entire school year is Tuesday, May 26th at 11:59 p.m. That's a week from today. If it's turned in later than that, I cannot promise that it will be graded in time for it to go in the grade book before grades are due. I know I've been beating you over the head with this found poem thing, but the vast majority of you have still not turned in the found poem. This is a project grade. If you do not turn it in, it is highly unlikely that you will pass this quarter. That's just how averages work. I'm not trying to punish you. I just need you to do it. It's not that difficult. And if you need help, please ask. I don't mind helping. This assignment for this week is an essay grade, so if you do not do it, it's highly unlikely that you will pass fourth quarter as well. It's just how it is. We don't have a lot of assignments in that category, so it is what it is. I just need you to do it. Trying is better than not doing anything at all. And then lastly, before you ask a question, do me a favor and make sure that you've watched the video for the PowerPoint. They contain, if you're watching this right now, you're doing the right thing, so thank you. But they contain a lot of extra information. I give you extra examples and things like that. So I highly recommend that you watch the video. All right. So narrative essays. Narrative essays are just a story written about a personal experience. So you're just telling a story. Writing a narrative essay provides an opportunity to get to know and understand yourself better. So think about why you do things, how they've impacted you, that kind of thing. One of the best ways to reveal who you are is to write about how you became aware of something or gained a new way of seeing the world. We would call that a new insight to something. So narratives provide human interest, spark our curiosity, and draw us close to the storyteller. So when you listen to somebody tell a story, you're listening to find out more about them. You are curious about the things. You might have questions for them later. That's the point of a narrative essay, is to get to know somebody better. So on your paper, I need you to answer these two questions. So the first one is, what stories do you have that you could tell? I just want you to write down 3, just a couple words each. So for example, a story that I could tell would be about the day that I got Queen. So I'm not going to tell the story about Queen here, but I would just write down, one story I could tell is the story about how I adopted my dog. And then, another story I could tell is about when I moved to Florida. And another story that I could tell is about, when my parents got divorced or something. After you've done that, you're going to answer the second one. So what makes an effective story? So think about these things. Does an effective story, like a good story, does it need dialogue? So dialogue is when characters talk back and forth. Does it need more than one character, or can a good story just have one character? Do you need a setting? Do you need to know the setting? What about emotion? Should you have strong emotions? If a story didn't have any emotion at all, would it still be a good story? So make sure you answer these 2 questions. You can pause it for a second, and you can unpause it when you're done, and we'll go on. All right, so there are several characteristics of narrative writing. I'm not necessarily asking that you take notes. There is a note section on your paper this week where you just have to answer some questions. Most of them are yes or no, or basically like one-word answers, so it's not too difficult. So just pay attention to this notes part. It's going to tell you what a good narrative essay looks and sounds like. And then we're going to move on to planning your essay later. So, narrative essays describe specific experiences that change how you felt, thought, or acted. So this isn't just a story about the time that you climbed a tree and nothing happened. This would be like a story about something that impacted your life in some way. It has to have meaning. Similar to a story in that it's similar to a story in the sense that it describes how your character, it can be you, it can be somebody else, is feeling by showing through his or her actions rather than coming right out and telling your readers. We've talked about this before, the difference between showing and telling. So a good narrative isn't just an entertaining story, but it has to make a point and it has to have a purpose to convey. You can't just write about anything. Wow, sorry, that's probably really loud. I apologize. So in writing a narrative essay, your purpose is not to merely tell an interesting story, but to show your readers the importance and influence the experience has on you. So do I want to know an interesting story? Yeah, but it has to have impact on your life. Why is this a story that you want to tell? So purpose and audience. Your job as a writer is to put the reader in the midst of the action, letting him or her live through an experience that you had. So a personal narrative presents important changes, contrasts, or conflicts and creates tension. So consider, do you grow from change? Is there a conflict between two characters? Is there a contrast between the past and the present? So people go through change in these stories. So I just want to know what that change is. A personal narrative focuses on connections between past events, people, or places in the present. So consider, how relevant is this event today in your life, and how relevant will it be in the future? A personal narrative makes a point, communicates a main idea or a dominant impression. So, again, you just have to tell me something important. You can't just tell me like about the time you went to the grocery store and nothing happened, because if you don't care, I don't care, right? It's kind of how this works. So structure of a narrative essay. So a narrative relates events in sequence. So by creating specific scenes that are set up at actual times and actual places. So this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, kind of thing, in chronological order. You can jump around and have flashbacks, that's okay. But for the sake of today, all I'm really looking for is this happened first, then this happened, then this happened. Again, like I said earlier, you need to show and don't tell, and recreate an event by setting it in a specific time and place. So make me feel like I'm there, make your reader feel like they're there. The key is making sure that your organization is both interesting and logical. So make sure you can follow it, make sure, a stranger reading it could know like what order it goes in. Again, with the showing and telling, don't tell the reader what he or she is supposed to think or feel. Let the reader see, hear, smell, feel, and taste the experience directly. So these are your senses, right? Use those senses. I felt the wind blow through my hair. I felt the sun kiss my skin, kind of thing. These are all senses. Showing is harder than telling, though, I do know that. So use your brains. It's easier to say it was incredibly funny than to write something that's incredibly funny. So if you want somebody to know that the character laughed, you have to make it funny. You can't just say, oh, the character laughed. So the rule of show, don't tell means that your job as a storyteller is to not interpret, it's to select revealing details. So it's to show things, right? So you need to pick out certain words that make it so that I can understand and feel what your character is feeling. An easy way to accomplish this, the showing and not telling, is to avoid the use of to be verbs and include more active verbs. So to be verbs include is, am, are, was, were, be, been, being. So active verbs would be like running or quickly walking or gasping or things like that. Instead of saying like Karen was, you could say Karen gasped for air instead of Karen was gasping for air. There's a difference. All right, so this part's really important. You need to let people talk. So it's amazing how much we learn about people from what they say. One way to achieve this is through carefully constructed dialogue. Dialogue is when characters talk to each other. You need to work to create dialogue that allows the characters' personalities and voices to emerge through unique word selection and the use of active rather than passive voice. So instead of saying, Lucy said, you would say, I can't stand this, screamed Lucy, kind of thing. And I'll give you more examples in a minute. So anytime a character speaks, you must use quotation marks. So here's some examples over here where the yellow arrows are. This is a piece from the book that we've been reading. So see how there's quotation marks here, quotation marks here, quotation marks here. This is all dialogue. Okay, that's all dialogue. It's all dialogue. Okay. All right, so tone is really important. The tone of your narrative should set up an overall feeling. So do you want your subject to be scared? Do you want it to have a cold tone or an afraid tone or a joking tone? So you need to look over your subject that you are presenting and think of what you're trying to get across. So how do you want your audience to feel when they finish your piece? Do you want them to be shocked? Do you want them to be jealous? Do you want them to be proud of you? You know, how do you want them to feel? You can do this through careful word choice. So if you want something to be creepy, you would, use words that convey that creepy tone. So there are 5 W's when it comes to this, and you're going to do this on your own paper. I'll show you in a second. So who was involved in the incident? How are they related to you? And I don't necessarily mean are they your cousins or anything like that, but why are they in the story? So is this going to be the person who tries to kill you, or is this going to be the person who, like, something bad happens to, or how are they involved? What led up to the incident? In what order did the stages of the incident occur? Where, how many locations were involved? It can be just one, it's fine. How much description of each location will the reader require? So if you say a park, well, if something happens at the park, what's in the park? Is there like a playground, or is it just an open field, or is there picnic tables, or what? You have to describe it. So when, at what time of day and or year did the event occur? What significance was the time, day, date, season, and or year? And then why, what caused the incident? So if you look at your paper, sorry, pull this up. So this is what your paper looks like. These are the notes that you need to fill in. So just as an example here, I want you to first, this is your planning before you write your essay. So I want a 1-sentence summary of the story you're going to tell. So the story I'm going to tell you today is the story I am going to tell is about my Florida family, right? Just 1 sentence, okay? So who was involved in the incident? Well, my students in my 8th period class were involved. And then how are they connected or related to you? Well, they're my students, right? Okay, so we've got that. They're my students. So what? This doesn't have to be long. So what led up to the incident? My birthday led up to the incident. I can spell. So in what order did the incident occur? Well, class started. They asked questions about the weekend. And that's kind of how it all started. So how many locations were involved, and how much description of each location will the reader require? Well, there was one location involved, my classroom. in the case of my story, the description of the setting doesn't require a lot of description. So in my narrative essay, the reader will not require a lot of description of the location. So when, at what time of day, and or what year did the event occur? So it was late afternoon in 2015, September 2015. It's important that it's during the school year, and in late September. So it has to do with my birthday, which is on October 2nd. Okay. So what caused the incident? A conversation about the weekend caused the incident. Okay? So that's all you have to do for that. What is the tone of your narrative essay? So I want you to tell me about the tone. So if you go back to these tone words, the tone of my essay is, I don't know. Let's see. It has kind of a sweet tone to it. So I'm going to go with sweet. My essay has a sweet tone. And so why did I choose this story to tell? I chose the story because it had a significant impact on my life and my life as a teacher. Okay, super easy, not complicated. And then down here is where you're going to write your essay, but we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so that's what you need to do. You're just filling out the information. It's not too complicated. All right. So you must answer the questions on the paper like I just showed you. That's not optional. And then you're going to write the narrative. So remember, a narrative is just a story that had an impact on your life, okay? Must impact your life, but it's just a story, okay? It must be true. I don't know if I mentioned that, so it must be true. So here's essentially your assignment. You need to write me a one-page typed narrative about something that has happened to you or an experience that you've had. It should have impacted your life in some way. If you don't care what you're writing about, neither will I. So you need dialogue and to include at least one other character that speaks. The book we're currently reading is a great example of narrative. Each chapter is its own narrative, okay? It must be in Times New Roman font and 12-point font, and remember to hit enter and tab after every piece of dialogue or idea. And I'll show you that in a second. If for some reason you don't have a computer, you need to email me. And I will give you explicit guidelines on what you need to do if you do not have a computer for some reason. But you must email me. All right, so if you're stuck on about what to write about, you could write about your happiest memory, an important moment in a game, if you're like an athlete or something, when you succeeded at something you thought you wouldn't, a time when you grew as a person, your scariest memory, when you failed at something and it impacted you as a person, could be anything. So I'm going to give you an example. So my example, I literally wrote this last night. So real time, real example. All right. So this is my example. I titled mine My Florida Family. So I'm going to read this to you. I wrote this myself. I promise. All right. Miss Catapult, what are you doing this weekend? These were the words out of my 8th period's mouths on a Tuesday as they were supposed to be doing the warm-up. I had just moved to Florida 2 months ago. What I didn't want to tell them was that I, as usual, was planning on doing nothing this weekend. The only difference was that my 23rd birthday was on Saturday. Oh, probably nothing. It's my birthday on Saturday, though. Any suggestions on what I should do this weekend? It's your birthday and you're going to do nothing, screamed a student. Why don't you go see your family, go out with some friends, hit the club or something, yelled another. I rolled my eyes in annoyance. This was exactly why I didn't want to tell them, I thought. I was avoiding thinking of my birthday altogether because it just made me really sad. I had only lived in Florida for 2 months, had no friends, and it was way too far from any family to see them on a regular weekend. I explained quickly why I would be doing nothing at all. Can we throw you a birthday party? Suggested a student. Yeah, can we have a party in class on Friday? We can all bring stuff. Everyone nodded in agreement. Sure, I guess, but you all have to organize it, and we will still do work, I told them, hoping they wouldn't be able to organize themselves enough to actually do anything on Friday. The party wasn't mentioned for the rest of the week. Friday came, and I was dreading 8th period and the possibility of my class, who could barely focus for 5 minutes, actually organizing themselves enough to throw me a party I didn't want. As I started to filter one by one into class, I sighed in relief. I was right. They absolutely had not been able to pull this off. Everyone sat down, and I jumped in surprise when I got a phone call from the front office asking for a student to come down to the office. I sent them. Another phone call, and then another, and another. 5 students in total were called out of class to go to the front office, with Miss Sam saying, "They'll be right back." They came back all together with balloons, fried chicken from Publix, several bags of chips, every flavor of Faygo soda you could imagine, cupcakes, plates, napkins, cups, and a card, all for me. They had actually done it. The 5 students had gone to the office because their parents had dropped off all the items for the party. We did it. We told you we would do it, they all said in unison. I was silent, stunned silent. Never in my life had anyone, let alone a class full of 10th graders I had known for 2 months, had done anything so kind and thoughtful for me. Even as students, you have the power to change lives. I have no family in Florida, and every year my students become my Florida family. My circumstances have barely changed in the 5 years that I've lived here. I still have no biological family here, and while I have more friends, my students every year make up a huge part of my life. However, I don't frequently tell my students this. Why? I don't know. Maybe it makes me feel weak, or I don't want them to know how much they truly do impact my life. But every year, my students manage to wiggle their way into my heart and never leave. There's a famous quote by Maya Angelou that says, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." If I ever run into students after they graduate, I may not remember what you said, I may not remember what you did, but I always remember the way that you made me feel. So, this is my example of an essay. So, I have dialogue, I have descriptions of things, the setting, the setting, etc. This part right here is a good example of descriptive language. Do you notice how I entered and indented? So you indent by hitting the tab button. I entered and indented after every idea or after each new person was talking. So yeah. Let me go back. So that's my example, okay? So something important to remember, I wrote about this because it had an impact on my life. It's not just something I remembered and had a good time doing, but it had an impact on my life. So remember, you have one assignment this week, and that is to write this narrative. That includes the questions beforehand. Everything is due, and that's everything for this quarter, not just this. Everything is due Tuesday, May 26th at 11:59 p.m. I'll add the voiceover and video with extended directions to my YouTube page. The links for everything can be found here on Focus and on Teams. This is a link to my YouTube channel. Turn everything in on Focus. If you need help, please ask. I don't mind helping you. So again, this is important. The last day to turn anything in for the quarter is Tuesday, May 26th at 11:59 p.m. If you turn in anything after this, I cannot promise it will be graded, I should say on time, not in time. All right, so if you have questions this week and maybe next week, I'm going to try to hold some live chat sessions if you need help with anything. So yeah, I love you guys and I miss you guys a lot. You're almost done. Hang in there. Almost done. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.